Alright, so instead of making 3 separate videos where maybe I only had a few things to say, I thought I'd make just like an SFF award recap video real quick because we got the results for the Nebula and the Locus, and I don't have too many thoughts about them, but I did want to like go through them a little bit. And then the Ursula K. Le Guin Award just got announced recently, and I've talked about some of their books in my TBR, but I really just want to go through and be like, excitement, what I'm excited to read, what I'm not going to read, what I'm going to try, what I've tried so far, that sort of thing. So, you know, an award season. Oh, I don't know what they're called. The things where you just have a little bit of everything. I'm blanking on the name of those types of shows. But we're just going to go through it, starting with the Nebula, because I'm always the least excited about the Nebula these days. Don't know why. So if you want to know my response to the shortlist, I do have a video on that. But let's talk about it. I did like try a chapter for all the novels. And so the one that won is Someone You Can Build a Nest In, which I did read, which I didn't dislike, but like the further I get away from it, the less I think about it. So it's probably, if we include enjoyment at the time and longevity, a 3.5 star, because it was only the very tail end that like sort of bumped it a tiny bit into the 4-star slot. It's had some fascinating discussion in my Discord. I've really loved seeing people's opinions on it, good and bad. It's been very interesting. So yeah, I guess that one is, at least of the ones I read, genre. Like I feel like Asunder, A Sorceress Comes to Call, and that were more genre, and then 2 of the other ones felt more literary, and then I guess the other one would have been genre too. I just hadn't finished it. The Sleeping Worlds, have no memory. Novella. So this is the Dragonfly Gambit from Neon Hemlock. It's been really interesting seeing people's thoughts on this one too. I think this one might be in another shortlist. I think it might be in the Ignite shortlist. I still want to try it. I still want to give it a go. I haven't read like any award seasons novellas though, so I don't have a lot of thoughts on novellas yet. Will I get thoughts? Maybe. It's just I don't derive a lot of joy from the average novella, so I'm trying to be good to myself and not just read them because they're short and consumable, but like read them when I'm in the mood and if I, am interested in their concept. The novelette, I now actually have read some of the novelettes, and of course the one that won is one I have not read. But I'm not even sure if any of the novelettes I read, I was like, yes, this should have won the award, because I think I've only read 2 that are on this list, and both were fine. But this one's the Negative Scholarship on the Fifth State of Being, and I think this one is also an Ignite novelette, so I might try and get to it. It's from Clark's World, so it should be relatively accessible. Could even maybe be on one of their podcasts, because they have a podcast, so they do some of their stuff. Best Short Work. I've also now read some of these. Like the one that didn't win that I read was 5 Views of the Planet Tartarus. Oh, the one that won I have read, Why Don't We Just Kill the Kid in the Omelus Hole? And I thought it was fine. I kind of get why it's winning. I think when it lands for someone, it's going to be super cathartic. It might not land. That's just is the way of very strongly stylized things. This short story, I felt, my interpretation was, it's basically about how we just keep going in circles in social media spaces with virtue signaling and discussing why can't we just do this one thing and it'll fix the problem, and then we keep doing the thing because convenience is better, and then also just how that extends outside of the Omelas problem that came, if you didn't know this, the Omelas Kid is from an Ursula K. Le Guin short story that I have never read. I have read more pieces about that than it, which I think is also kind of thematically in line with this piece. It's like you haven't even seen the source material. You have just only seen people comment on it, which feels apt. So yeah, I think it's interesting. It's very timely. Like if you want awards to kind of represent the vibe of the now, that short story definitely does. The other one that was cool that I read was We Will Teach You How to Read. We Will Teach You How to Read. That one's just like super experimental though. That one was wild. Outstanding Dramatic Presentation was Dune Part 2. I will be shocked if this also doesn't get, accolades in the Hugos. We'll be shocked. Then we have Middle Grade and Young Adult. The winner was The Young Necromancer's Guide to Ghosts. I don't know what that is. It sounds like it's Young Adult though, so that's cool. And Best Game Writing was A Death in Hyperspace, and I don't know what that is. So again, that was the Nebula. I don't have strong opinions. Now, the Locus Awards, they actually break it down into, like, subgenres of genre, and I didn't vote in it because I always forget, but this is, like, I don't actually know how the long list is made, because it basically gets, like, a huge long list and short list, I think, and then it is all fan-voted, So I guess, again, I don't know how the nominations work. For all I know, fans also nominate it. But you get 2 votes, I think, if you actually subscribe to Locus, and you get 1 vote if you don't. So it's a little bit skewed towards the population that actually pays for the magazine. Which I actually did do one of their, they had a crowdfunding thing recently, because I like SFF magazines. I wish I was the type of person who kept up to date on any publication. If I did, maybe it would be Locus. I don't know. So we got some winners here in different categories. We have the science fiction novel, which I have never heard of, called The Man Who Saw Seconds. Apparently it's a thriller. I'm like fascinated. If you've read this book and you liked it, let me know. I have completely over my head. I have not seen this book. The rest, like, I've kind of seen. Like, The Mercy of Gods is on the short list, The Imposition of Unnecessary Objects, Alien Clay, Service Model, Space Oddity, Absolution, Breaksfall. Like, a lot of these I've seen. I haven't seen The Bezel, which is on this list. And Kidding I Know by Nisi Shaw, but I hadn't read the first book. So that's science fiction. And then fantasy. Sorceress Comes to Call for a popularity contest list in the genre category. I am not shocked. Honestly, if this one won the Hugo, again, wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I actually don't know which okay popular book will win the Hugo. But alas, and one day I'll put out my Hugo video because I'm reading through all the stuff. But man, was I right on how my ratings would go. But this was up against The Tainted Cup, I'm Afraid You Got Dragons, The Dead Cat Tales, Bright Sword, Asunder, Somewhere Beyond the Sea, Siege of Burning Grass, which I've read, and Long Live Evil was here, which I've read, and The City in Glass, which I recently just read. What a time. So not a bad shortlist to be up against, and I do think since some of these would be on the Hugo list, and it's not that the Locus Awards finalist voters and the Hugos are the same group of people, but there's overlap. Horror novel, Bury Your Gaze, I still need to read. A Chuck Tingle. I really do. I don't know, The Angel of Indian Lakes here, which I know, and Model Homes here, and Horror Movie. Those are the only ones I know of, and I've only read 2 of them, so I'm not as in the know of the horror category. If you are up to date, like, I've been curious about House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias, so if you've read that and you think it's good, let me know. The cover is always speaking to me, but I do not know what it's about. But it also has a house on the cover and me in haunted houses, so... And I could be wrong about what it's about. I'm going based purely on the marketing vibes of how the book appears to me. Young adult was Moonstorm, Yoon-Ha Lee. Not surprised, because Yoon-Ha Lee is a popular adult author, and they do write middle grade and young adult, but it's like there's going to be crossover appeal between audiences there. The best first novel is Someone You Can Build a Nest In, because I think before that he did short works. This also has The Ministry of Time, which is on the Hugo list, which I guess for a first book is pretty good. Actually, it's pretty tight for a first book. If I think of it as a first book, it's more than fine. It's still not great, but it's more than fine. And I don't know, The Book of Love. I think that's interesting that it's a first book, because I know she is so heavily known for her short stories. And it's a long first book. That's like 600 pages. Then we have The West Passage, which I want to read. Womb City, which I read, and I think is actually pretty good. Maybe 50 pages too long for my tastes. And I don't recognize the other ones. Novellas, see, again, Locus people, they love a T. Kingfisher, because we got What Feasts at Night. And then a bunch of the other novellas. And I think What Feasts at Night is only on the Hugo's novella shortlist as well. But a bunch of the normal suspects. The only one here that isn't on other ones, and I think it's because she's more popular in Locus spaces, is Haunt Sweet Home by Sarah Pinsker, which I did like. And now in hindsight, I'm like, it's interesting that wasn't on lists, but maybe it was just too contemporary. I don't know. But yeah, there's really nothing here. I think there's Mislaid and Parts Half Known by Shauna McGuire that's here that wasn't on other things, but the rest I have seen on all the novella lists. The novella category is like the same 15 books, and you're just picking like 6 or 7 of them over and over again. A novelette I have not read. Maybe I have read. No, I don't think I've read it. By Salt, by Sea, by Light of Stars. And if I did read it, I forgot it, which should tell you how much I liked it. No, wait, I did read this. But why is that the title? I think I read this for the Hugo's novelette. If this is in the Hugo novelette category, I've read it, and it was fine. But this title doesn't really make sense to me. Yeah, that just is what it is. Like I said, it has some other ones that I've read from other categories. Oddly enough, there's one that I read for the Hugos that might be my favorite, but I've only seen it there. I guess I'll talk about that in a Hugo video one day. Oh, the winner of this short story is Why Don't We Kill the Kid in the Ominous Hole. Like I said, timely. Really won't be at all surprised if it wins the Hugo for short story. I'm actually wondering, is there a short story that I like more than that one? Like, not that it's, like, outstanding to me, but, like, I can't really remember other ones. The anthology is The Black Girl Survives in this one, which was in the Ignite Awards, which has me excited. I saw this in the wild, too. I was curious about it. And then, let's see, is there anything else of note there? Not really. It does still have the anthology of Palestinian speculative fiction, which I do want to try out. Okay, the collection that's here that I read the novelette from that I really liked is Lake of Souls by Anne Leckie. I am so hit or miss with Anne Leckie. Like, and I say that I was a miss on Ancillary Justice, but I love Translation State, and I really liked the titular Lake of Souls story. I thought that was really fun and engaging and interesting. I almost bought the collection, but it has so many stories from books of hers that I haven't read, and so I'm just like, okay. I'd much prefer a collection where it's just like isolated, not like a part of a world sort of thing. So yeah, that's cool. And then magazine winners, Clark's World, publisher is Subterranean Press. Tor Publishing Group recused themselves from that category. Editor Neil Clark, who does Clark's World. I don't know the artist Charles Vest. Let's look real quick at some of that art. Oh, he does the Books of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. So there's at least one that I will show you guys. Very pretty. Okay, back into it. Nonfiction, Afrocentrofuturism, and our speculative fiction. I think I learned about this in the Ignite Award. And then we've got illustrated and art book, The Last Unicorn, and special awards celebrating excellence in genre Ignite Awards, which I love. So there you go. I just briefly went through those awards, and now let's talk about the Ursula K. Le Guin Award in Fiction, because we got that short list. Ursula K. Le Guin. How does my Google not know this is exactly what I want? Like, if they're going to spy on me, do it better. Let's discuss the books, which ones I'm going to read, my thoughts on some that maybe I've read or have started already. First, we have Breaksfall. I'm not going to read this. I already tried a chapter of it, or actually, I think I only got 15 pages in. It was not working for my brain, and I had a similar problems with The Saint of Bright Doors, which I read last year when it was on this list. But, you know, I'm not mad that he's here or anything. I think it's going to be a very interesting work if it works for you. I have issues with just so many disconnects in terms of I don't have a character or a grounding in the world to latch onto. I don't know a lot about Sri Lankan things that are included. And then on top of that, he's just using a lot of vocabulary I don't normally use. So I'm just very confused on all fronts. Normally I can handle one confusion or even 1.5. Like, if I don't understand a culture, I can normally get by because I can understand the sentences. But if I don't understand the sentences, and I don't understand the culture, and I don't know who my characters are, I am, alas, not the reader for this story. But I really like what he's doing. And I do think Saint of Bright Doors was more accessible for me. So if you want to try his very unique approach to science fiction and fantasy, I would start there. This one is, in theory, a science fiction. Let's see, this thing says, over the course of centuries, two characters move through eras and lives recurring, coming together, coming apart, and seeking change. That sounded so cool. But I think it's also just a little not grounded enough for you to even know when you're in a different era, okay? Like, I was just so lost. Revolutionary-minded and dizzyingly intricate. Yes, it is. Dizzyingly. Yes, I'm very dizzy when I read that. So yeah, he has a fascinating style. We have my Andrea Hairston book, Archangels of Funk. I hear this is a sequel to a book I haven't read, but it doesn't matter. Which makes sense, I think, based off how I've read her other work. But it's apparently warm, hopeful, funky, and wise. Hairston's novel has room for elders, dogs, teens, children, spirits, musicians, performers, writers, coders, and everyone else on stage or off. Interesting. It depicts art and community-filled vision of how we might live in a semi-apocalyptic future. I do remember when I was talking about this in my TBR, I was like, this could be hopeful and cathartic, or it could be very depressing. So I'm curious, and based off how she did her climate-based fantasy, I trust it. I trust the process for that one. So I haven't read it yet, but I'm curious. One that I'm currently reading, and oh my goodness, I'm so sad not many people have been picking this book up, but this is Blackheart Man by Nalo Hopkinson, who is like the GOAT of Caribbean speculative fiction, which I know like people don't pick up, but like truly so many people are inspired by her works, and her works are so interesting. And I think this one of the three I've read is the most accessible so far. So if you want one that's maybe more accessible, I guess Brown Girl in the Ring is probably more accessible, maybe in terms of dialect and cultural influences because it's in Toronto. But I find this one to be fairly straightforward, or maybe I just don't even know what is accessible when it comes to Caribbean dialect anymore, because I've literally been learning the words as I've been reading more of it. But Vukosi is a wild character, so in terms of strong characters to just follow and be befuddled by, so interesting. I'd have to look into it. I don't know if this is historical fantasy or like made up island fantasy that's meant to be a metaphor for our historical time. I don't really know. But it's an island in a Caribbean type place that for 200 years has not been oppressed, and now the former oppressors are coming back. And in the midst of this, we're following Vukosi, who is this pseudo scholar engineer, and he always does stuff without permission to mixed effect. And he's just a fascinating personality to primarily view this story through. We have other perspectives, but he's our primary. And we're learning the history of this place. And there was like a couple pages on food, and I got really hungry really fast. That doesn't happen to me all the time, but And I think it makes sense because, again, I like this book, like I like Louise Erdrich books and stuff. The community is vibrant. The sense of place is just so well realized, and I really enjoy it. One I haven't read, The Sapling Cage. So this is a coming-of-age trans story, I believe fantasy, and I've heard from many people that it doesn't go the way you expect, which has me very excited. So like in the blurb here, it's Killjoy's beautiful, imagined coming-of-age fantasy explores acceptance, community, gender, power, and resistance through the story of a young trans protagonist who becomes more fully herself among anarchic witches, irreverent knights, compelling magic, and an unnerving threat to the natural world. And I believe the author is herself trans, which is good to have representation for. I find, especially nowadays, it's probably going to be harder to find out trans individuals to read from. Another one that I have on my TBR is The West Passage. It follows two young people carrying outsized responsibilities as they move through a surreal and vividly imagined landscape of beauty and horror. I hear the horror elements are eldritch. So it considers power, tradition, and the possibility of rejecting expectations in search of a better future. I'm liking the hope, which, if you've never read the Ursula K. Le Guin in fiction sort of mission statement, like they see a lot of what the Ursula K. Le Guin did is like hope-seeking and hopeful. I've only read one of her works. So she can be very anthropological, she can be very hopeful, she's written short fiction, she's written for kids. And so when they put these lists together, they try to grab for things that are like in the spirit of what she wanted to work on, and there is a cash prize. So I think the nomination process was open, but the actual selection, like the voting process, is a jury. So we don't have a say in that. We just get to watch from afar. So The West Passage, being hopeful, isn't surprising. I have it. It was recently, we just talked about it, and like nominated for best first work. One that I'm so excited about because someone in my Discord read it recently and was obsessed, and I think it might be my type of vignette obsession, is Remember You Will Die by Eden Robinson, who is a Canadian, maybe Indigenous as well, author. I can't remember if she's both Canadian and Indigenous or just Canadian. I'm fairly confident about the Canadian. So it's compared primarily of obituaries. Fascinating, right? Like not letters, obituaries. And it traces the lives of artists, activists, scientists, and more as they intersect and overlap. Oh my gosh, intersecting vignette obituaries. So yeah, it's unexpectedly life-affirming novel about death. Again, a hopeful take on a tragic thing. Themes of our now, because we are all going to have to continue to live in this semi-apocalyptic hellscape. Continuing. So I'm really excited about that one. It's on my list to get to sooner rather than later. I want to read all the things all the time. One I just finished yesterday is The City in Glass by Nevo. This is the only list, actually no, the Locus had it on a short list, I'm fairly certain, that this book has been on, and I know people love her Singing Hill books. They are more accessible than the books I like by Nevo. And even though I do not know how I feel completely about the ending of this book, I spent a long time yesterday chatting with people in my Discord trying to understand my feelings on the ending of this book because I was confused about what I read, how I felt, etc. That said, though, a story about grief and slow change and the word choices, it was the perfect amount of time for me to spend in this, and I read it both a little bit physically, mostly audio, and the audio cadence I really liked. I mean, the narrator is whatever, but in terms of how the words sound next to each other, I really enjoyed. It was very beautiful and kind of like an adult folktale to me. So again, I don't know how I feel about the ending. I don't know and I think also that's something I like about it. I like how confused I feel. I liked that I didn't anticipate where she went and that I'm trying to figure out why she went there. I enjoy that. So yeah, City in Glass, an interesting time. Only 200 some pages. Like, it's more than a novella, but it's not like super long. And then the last one that I have read one of the stories, so this is one of those, I feel like they did this 2 years ago. We had a short story collection that were basically a bunch of stories in this world. And I think that's what's happening here. North Continent Ribbon is a space opera short story collection. And I'm so interested in it. And it was funny, I read the first one, and I read the back of the book, and of course Yoon Ha Lee blurbed this. Because I'm just like, yeah, you would blurb this weird space opera world. Because if you don't know, one of my favorite space operas of all time is by Yoon Ha Lee, and it's like, no hands are being held, it's a weird time, enjoy. It's not quite as weird so far, but in terms of aggressive world building style and the themes being explored, I'm very excited. It's very short. I've only been able to get it through like an interlibrary loan, so it's on my list because I have to like return it sooner than normal. So yeah, that is to say, thank goodness for the Ignite and Ursula K. Le Guin Award, because they have actually given me books that I've been enjoying and excited about, versus the Nebula and Hugo's, I'm sorry, my dudes, you're losing, you're boring, be more curious, explore a bit more, expand your horizons. We all love a T. Kingfisher, of course we do. Even she would probably say at this point that there's other stuff out there. Like, explore a smidge. Just a little. You know, preaching to the choir, I'm sure. It's just, I'm excited about how excited I am about the books that I've been reading for both of those awards. Because I still have a few others for the Ignite that I also want to get to that aren't on the Ursula K. Le Guin. But I have a video on the Ignite Awards if you want to watch that. So let me know what you feel about the Nebulas and the Locus Award winners, and how you feel about this short list. What are you excited to pick up, or have you picked up? And otherwise, if you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, leave a star for the awards. Let's go with that. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.